The crystal wine glass in my daughter's hand trembled slightly as she looked me dead in the eye, her voice filled with a cold, clear certainty that shattered my world into a million pieces. "You want to know what I really wish," she said, her words cutting through the tense silence of the dinner table. "I wish Ashe had been my mother." And she gestured, with that wine glass, to her fiancé's impossibly perfect mother sitting right next to me. Hi, everyone. The channel calls me Grandma Carol. My name is Carol Peterson. I'm 70 years old, and I'm speaking to you from my small, quiet home in central Ohio. A home that has seen a lot of love, and one night, more pain than I ever thought a heart could hold. This is a story I swore I would take to my grave. It is the story of the moment my only child, my beautiful Chloe, held up my entire life's work, all my sacrifice, all my love, and told me it wasn't enough. It's a secret I've never shared, not even with my closest friends. This shame was just too heavy. But I've learned from watching you all here that shame grows in silence. And I'm tired of being silent. So, before I take you back to that awful night, I would be so very grateful if you would please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support is more than just a click. For an old woman about to lay her heart bare, it feels like a chorus of voices telling me it's okay, that I'm not alone. It gives me the courage to finally speak. Thank you, my dears. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. My story, I suppose, really began 35 years ago, the day I became a mother. It all started when they placed my Chloe in my arms. Oh, she was so tiny, so perfect. A little bundle of impossible life with a shock of dark hair and big, curious eyes that looked right into my soul. Her father, well, he wasn't in the picture. He was a mistake I made when I was young and foolish, and he made it clear he wanted no part of us. So from that very first moment, it was just Chloe and me, my little girl and I against the world. And gosh, what a world it was. I was a single mother with a high school education and not a penny to my name. I didn't have a career, I had jobs. I cleaned houses during the day, the smell of bleach and pine sol clinging to my clothes. At night, after I put Chloe to bed, I worked as a waitress at a little diner downtown, coming home long after midnight with tired feet and the faint scent of coffee and fried onions in my hair. I was perpetually exhausted, my bones aching with a weariness that never truly went away, but it was a life full of love. A love so fierce and bright, it burned away the shadows. Our apartment was small, the furniture was secondhand, and our dinners were often simple. But it was our sanctuary. It was filled with laughter. I would come home from my cleaning job, and Chloe would run to the door and wrap her little arms around my legs. And in that moment, I wasn't a tired maid. I was the most important person in the world. I couldn't give her things, but I gave her my time. I gave her every ounce of my energy. I couldn't afford fancy store-bought Halloween costumes, so I learned to sew. I remember staying up all night with a needle and thread, turning an old yellow tablecloth into a beautiful bell gown from Beauty and the Beast. When she put it on and twirled in front of the mirror, her face lit up with a joy so pure, it was worth more than all the money in the world. I couldn't afford vacations to Disney World, so we had adventures. We'd pack peanut butter sandwiches and have expeditions to the local state park, pretending we were explorers discovering new lands. I read to her every single night, my voice hoarse from my waitressing shift, until she fell asleep. I helped her with every homework assignment. I was at every school play, every parent-teacher conference, beaming with a pride that was almost painful. My entire existence revolved around her. My love for her was the sun, and my life was the small planet that happily orbited it. And she was a happy child. A sweet, loving, grateful child. She would make me little drawings with the caption, "The best mom in the world." I saved every single one. They were my treasures. I worked, and I saved. I put every spare dollar into a savings account for her future. I wore my shoes until the soles had holes in them, but I made sure she had new ones for school. My dream wasn't for me. It was for her. I wanted her to have the one thing I never did, a choice. The choice to go to college, to build a career, to have a life that wasn't defined by a constant, grinding struggle. And she did it. She was smart, so smart. She got a scholarship to the state university. I stood at her high school graduation, tears streaming down my face, my heart feeling like it would burst with pride. She did it. We did it. It was at college that she met David. He was a wonderful young man, studying to be an architect. He was kind, respectful, and he adored Chloe. When she brought him home to meet me, my heart soared. He looked at her with such love, and he treated me with a warmth and respect that immediately put me at ease. I thought, this is it. This is the reward. My daughter has found a good man who will love her and build a beautiful life with her. And then she brought home his mother. Her name was Beatrice. And the moment she stepped out of her gleaming black Mercedes and into my small, humble driveway, I felt a shift in the universe. She was everything I was not. She was tall and slender, dressed in a cream-colored cashmere suit that probably cost more than my car. Her hair was perfectly styled, her nails perfectly manicured. She smelled faintly of expensive perfume and money. She carried a designer handbag like it was an extension of her own arm. She was polite. Oh, she was exquisitely polite. But it was the politeness of a queen visiting the quaint home of a commoner. Her eyes swept over my clean but worn furniture, my framed photos of Chloe on the walls, and she gave a tight, thin smile. "Carol, it's a pleasure to finally meet you," she said, her handshake cool and brief. "Chloe has told us so much about you. This is a very charming home." Charming. It was the word one uses for something small and a little bit pitiful. She had brought a gift. "Just a little something," she said, handing Chloe a sleek, beautifully wrapped box. Chloe opened it, and her breath caught. Inside, nestled on a bed of black velvet, was a delicate, glittering diamond tennis bracelet. I saw a look on my daughter's face that I had never seen before. It was a look of pure, unadulterated awe, a hunger. She had seen a new kind of magic, a different kind of love language, and she was instantly mesmerized. She hugged Beatrice, her voice breathless. "Oh, Beatrice, you shouldn't have. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Beatrice just smiled that cool, knowing smile. "Every beautiful girl deserves beautiful things, my dear." I stood there, my own small gift for Chloe, a knitted sweater I had spent a month making, suddenly feeling heavy and foolish in my hands. In that moment, watching the diamonds sparkle on my daughter's wrist, a tiny, cold seed of fear was planted in my heart. I had fought the world for my daughter, and won. But I had a sudden, terrifying feeling that I was about to enter a battle I had no idea how to fight. That diamond bracelet, it was more than just a piece of jewelry. It was a symbol. It was the first shot fired in a war I didn't even know I was fighting. From that day on, something in Chloe began to change. It wasn't a sudden shift, but a slow, creeping erosion of the world we had built together, replaced by the glittering, seductive world of Beatrice and David. At first it was just talk. Chloe's conversations, which used to be filled with stories about her classes, her friends, her dreams, were now peppered with mentions of Beatrice. Beatrice took me to lunch at the club today. You should see the place, Mom. It's like something out of a movie. Beatrice has the most amazing eye for art. She's helping me pick out a few prints for my apartment. David's family is going to their lake house this weekend. Beatrice invited me to come along. Each mention felt like a small sting. I was happy for her. Of course I was. I wanted her to have these experiences. But I couldn't help but feel a growing sense of otherness. She was speaking a language I didn't understand, the language of country clubs and lake houses and designer clothes. A world I had only ever seen through a diner window or on a rich person's television screen while I was scrubbing their floors. I tried to stay connected. I'd ask questions. "Oh, that sounds wonderful, honey. What did you have for lunch?" Chloe would sigh, a little puff of impatient air. "I don't know, Mom. Some kind of salad with a French name I can't pronounce. It's not about the food, it's about the experience." She didn't mean to be cruel. I know she didn't. But her words made me feel small. Stupid. My life was about the food, about making sure there was enough of it. It was about the practical, the mundane, the necessary. Her life was becoming the experience. And Beatrice was her tour guide into this glamorous new world. Beatrice's influence was like a slow, rising tide, and I was watching my daughter drift away from my shore. She started dressing differently. The comfortable jeans and sweaters I used to buy her from the department store were replaced by sleek, expensive-looking blouses and tailored pants. "Beatrice took me shopping," she'd explain. "She said it's important to dress for the life you want, not the life you have." The implication hung in the air between us, unspoken but heavy. The life you have now is not good enough. My life was not good enough. The real heartbreak began with the wedding planning. David proposed to Chloe on her graduation day. It was a beautiful moment, and I cried tears of pure joy. I thought, this is it. She's happy. I imagined us planning the wedding together, just like we had planned her childhood birthday parties. I imagined us poring over bridal magazines, laughing as we picked out flowers and invitations. That dream shattered almost immediately. The day after the engagement, Beatrice invited Chloe and me to her home for brunch to celebrate and discuss ideas. Her house wasn't a house, it was a mansion. It sat on a hill overlooking the river, a sprawling palace of glass and stone. The inside was immaculate, decorated in shades of white and gray, with enormous abstract paintings on the walls and sculptures that probably cost more than my entire life's savings. It didn't feel like a home. It felt like a museum. Beatrice served us tiny, crustless sandwiches and mimosas in crystal flutes. Then, she pulled out a thick, leather-bound binder. It was already filled with tabs, swatches, and glossy photos. "I took the liberty of putting together a few preliminary ideas," she said, her voice smooth as silk. "I've spoken to my personal event planner, and she has some wonderful concepts for a fall wedding at the art gallery downtown. It's a very exclusive venue, but I have a connection, of course." She flipped through the pages. There were photos of enormous floral arrangements, of 5-course meals, of a string quartet. It was a production fit for royalty. I felt my throat go dry. I had been saving money for Chloe's wedding since the day she was born. It wasn't a lot, just a few $1,000s tucked away in a special account. It was everything I had. I had dreamed of giving her a lovely, heartfelt wedding in the little church in our neighborhood, with a reception in the community hall. "This all looks very expensive, Beatrice," I said, my voice barely a whisper. She gave me that cool, polite smile again. "Oh, Carol, don't you worry your head about a single thing. This is our gift to David and Chloe. We'll be handling everything." It was meant to sound generous, but what I heard was, "Your contribution is not needed. Your small, pathetic savings are an insult. Step aside and let the professionals handle this." I looked at Chloe. I prayed she would say something. That she would say, "Thank you, Beatrice, but my mom and I wanted to plan this together." That she would remember our shared dreams. But my daughter's face was glowing with that same look of awe I saw when she received the diamond bracelet. She was utterly captivated. "Oh, Beatrice," she breathed, her hand on the glossy photos. "This is a fairy tale. It's everything I've ever dreamed of." Had it been? Had she been dreaming of art galleries and string quartets while I was dreaming of community halls and a DJ playing her favorite songs? Had I gotten it all so wrong? In that moment, sitting in that cold, white mansion, I felt like I was disappearing. My role as her mother, a role that had been the very center of my identity for my entire adult life, was being rendered obsolete. I was no longer the provider, the planner, the creator of joy. I was being politely, but firmly, erased. The months leading up to the wedding were a special kind of torture. I was included in the process, but only as a spectator. I was invited to the cake tasting, where Beatrice and Chloe debated between a 6-tiered lemon raspberry creation and a decadent chocolate hazelnut sculpture. My opinion on simple vanilla was met with a pitying smile. I was invited to the dress fitting, where Chloe tried on $1,000 gowns while Beatrice sipped champagne and offered critiques. I just sat in the corner, my hands clasped in my lap, feeling like an intruder. They would talk over my head, using a shorthand I couldn't follow. The calligrapher needs the final list by Friday, Beatrice would say. And I spoke to Jean-Pierre about the lighting. Who was Jean-Pierre? Which calligrapher? I was completely lost. The worst part was watching Chloe transform. She wasn't just being influenced by Beatrice anymore. She was starting to become her. She adopted Beatrice's cool, dismissive tone when speaking about things she deemed unsophisticated. She started correcting my grammar. She developed a taste for things she couldn't possibly afford, a taste that was entirely funded by her future mother-in-law. One afternoon, we were having coffee at my small kitchen table. I was telling her a funny story about one of my old regulars at the diner. She listened with a strained, polite patience. When I finished, she sighed. "Mom, I love you, but sometimes you can be a little provincial. Don't you ever want more than this? Don't you ever look at Beatrice's life and wish you had aimed higher?" The question felt like a knife twisting in my gut. Aimed higher? All I had ever aimed for was her. Her health. Her happiness. Her future. I had worked my fingers to the bone to give her a foundation to launch from, and now she was looking back down at me from orbit and asking why I had never learned to fly. "My life has been about you, Chloe," I said, my voice trembling with a hurt so profound it was hard to breathe. "Everything I did for you." "I know, Mom," she said, but her tone was placating, the tone one uses with a child. "And I appreciate it. I really do. It's just, Beatrice has shown me what's possible. She's opened up my world and closed the door on mine." I knew then that I had lost her. I hadn't lost her to David, her wonderful fiancé. I had lost her to Beatrice. I had lost her to a world of wealth and sophistication that I could never compete with. How could my knitted sweaters compare to diamond bracelets? How could my simple love, a love built on scraped knees and bedtime stories and patched-up clothes, ever compete with a love that came with a 6-tiered cake and a wedding at an art gallery? I felt a crushing, suffocating sense of failure. Maybe she was right. Maybe I had been too provincial. Maybe I had her back. My love, which I had always believed was my greatest gift, now felt like a lead weight, a shackle I had inadvertently placed on my own daughter's potential. And the shame of that thought was a constant, bitter companion. The night before the wedding was the rehearsal dinner. It was held at the most exclusive, expensive restaurant in the city, a place I had only ever walked past, peering through the windows at the beautifully dressed people inside. It was Beatrice's show from start to finish. The long table was adorned with white orchids and dozens of flickering candles. The air was filled with the quiet clinking of crystal and the low hum of sophisticated conversation. I felt like a stray dog that had wandered into a palace. I wore the nicest dress I owned, a simple navy blue one I'd bought on sale for a cousin's wedding years ago at Tattoo. I had spent an hour on my hair, trying to make it look elegant, but next to Beatrice, who shimmered in a silver silk dress, I felt dowdy and invisible. My Chloe was radiant. She was holding court, laughing, and telling the story to David's relatives. She looked so happy, so at home in this world of quiet luxury. She caught my eye once and gave me a quick, fleeting smile before turning back to her new family. It was a smile you give a distant acquaintance, not the woman who raised you. I sat through the dinner in a fog of misery. The food was exquisite, I'm sure, but it all tasted like cardboard in my mouth. I listened as Beatrice's friends talked about their recent trip to Tuscany and their winter plans for Aspen. I had nothing to contribute. What could I say? My trip to the grocery store was quite eventful. My winter plans involved turning up the thermostat. I just sat there, smiling my polite, vacant smile, feeling my world shrink until it was the size of my dinner plate. Then came the toasts. David stood up and gave a beautiful, heartfelt speech about Chloe, about how much he loved her. My heart ached with love for him, for being so good to my daughter. Then David's father stood and welcomed Chloe to their family. It was all so lovely. And then Beatrice rose to her feet, a flute of champagne in her hand. The room fell silent. Everyone was waiting for the Queen to speak. "I'm not one for long speeches," she began, her voice smooth and confident. "But I must say a few words. Chloe, my dear, from the moment David brought you home, I knew you were special. You have a grace, a poise, a spirit that is simply extraordinary." She turned her eyes to Chloe, and her smile was dazzling. "I have always wanted a daughter. And now, I feel like I finally have one. I look forward to a lifetime of shopping trips, of lunches, of travels, to guiding you, to helping you become the magnificent woman I know you are destined to be." It was a beautiful speech, a perfect speech, and it was a declaration of ownership. She was publicly anointing Chloe as her heir, her project. Then, she did something I never saw coming. She turned her gaze on me, at the other end of the table. Her smile was still in place, but her eyes were cold as chips of ice. "And we must, of course," she said, her voice taking on a tone of magnanimous pity, "give a nod to Carol, for doing the best she could with what she had, for getting Chloe this far. It takes a village, as they say. And now, my dear Carol, you can rest. Your work is done. We'll take it from here." Nidhi, Ediwani, Biari, Kali, Akadira, Chemzis, Awar. The room was filled with polite, appreciative applause. People were smiling at me, nodding. They thought it was a generous, kind tribute. But I heard the words for what they were. It was a severance package, a dismissal, a public thank you, followed by a firm, "You may go now." My entire life of struggle, of sacrifice, of fierce, all-consuming love had been reduced to a nod. I had done the hard, dirty work of raising her, and now that she was polished and perfect, Beatrice was swooping in to take the credit and enjoy the finished product. In that moment, a humiliation so profound, so crushing, washed over me that I felt like I was drowning. My face burned. My hands trembled. I looked at my daughter, praying she would see my pain, that she would leap to my defense. But Chloe was beaming at Beatrice, her eyes shining with tears of gratitude. She didn't see my humiliation. She only saw her own glorious future. I don't know what happened next inside me. It was like a string that had been pulled taut for 35 years, finally snapped. The years of exhaustion, the nights spent worrying, the constant fear of not having enough, the raw, scraped knuckle work of single motherhood. It all just rose up in a tidal wave of pure, unadulterated pain. Later, David would tell me that I just stood up, that my face was white as a sheet. I don't remember standing. All I remember is Chloe, looking at me, her smile faltering, a look of annoyance crossing her face. "Mom, what are you doing? Sit down, you're making a scene." And then she said the words that had been seared into my memory like a brand. She looked from my face to Beatrice's, and a look of cold decision hardened her features. "You want to know what I really wish?" she said, her voice clear and cutting. "I wish Aisha had been my mother." And she gestured, with her wine glass, to Beatrice. The world stopped. The air left my lungs. The quiet clinking of the restaurant, the murmur of conversation, my own heartbeat. Everything just ceased. The only thing that existed was the look on my daughter's face. A look of finality. A look of choice. And she had not chosen me. And in that moment of absolute, soul-shattering devastation, something else happened. The pain was so immense, so total, that it looped back on itself and became something else. It became clarity. A cold, terrible, liberating clarity. The shame, the guilt, the feeling of failure I had carried for months. It all burned away, and what was left was the hard, diamond-bright core of the truth. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just looked at my daughter, this beautiful stranger, and for the first time, I saw her not as my child, but as the woman she had become. Beatrice looked horrified, but also triumphant. My son-in-law, David, looked utterly appalled, his mouth slightly agape. I turned my gaze from Chloe to Beatrice. I gave her a small, sad smile. "You know, Beatrice," I said, and my voice was surprisingly calm, surprisingly steady. You might get your wish sooner than you think." And then I turned and walked out of the restaurant. I didn't know where I was going. I just walked. I left my purse, my coat, everything. I just walked out into the cool night air, leaving the wreckage of my heart behind me on the pristine white tablecloth. I walked for hours. I ended up in a small, all-night diner, a place just like the one I used to work in. It felt like coming home. I sat in a booth with a cup of coffee I couldn't afford, and I thought about my entire life. I thought about the yellow tablecloth I turned into a princess gown. I thought about the scraped knees I had kissed, the fevers I had nursed, the nightmares I had soothed. All of my love, all of my sacrifice had led to this, to being thrown away for a woman who had done nothing but write checks. And as the sun began to rise, a new feeling began to dawn in my heart. It wasn't despair. It was resolve. A cold, hard resolve. Chloe had made her choice. Beatrice had made her intentions clear. And now, I was going to make mine. I went back to my little apartment. I walked into the bedroom and pulled a dusty box from the top of the closet. It was filled with every drawing she had ever made me, every report card, every birthday card. And at the bottom of the box was a stack of old, worn-out ledgers. The ledgers from the diner where I used to work. For 15 years, I had done the diner's books on the side for extra cash. Every night, I would meticulously record every expense, every order, every bit of income. And for 15 years, my boss, a man named Sal, had been skimming from the profits. A little here, a little there. He thought because I was just a single mom, a waitress, that I was too stupid to notice. But I noticed everything. And I recorded it. I recorded the real numbers in one set of books, and the fake numbers he gave the IRS in another. For years, I had kept them as a form of insurance, a weapon I hoped I'd never have to use. Sal had always paid me on time, and I needed the job. But I was not a fool. The day after the rehearsal dinner, the morning of my daughter's wedding, I did not go to the hair salon. I did not put on my navy blue dress. Instead, I put on a pair of comfortable shoes, packed up Sal's real ledgers, and I took a bus downtown. My destination wasn't the art gallery. It was the IRS building. Chloe wanted Beatrice, the woman with the perfect, clean life. Fine. I was about to show her exactly what the life her real mother had lived was built on. The compromises, the grit, the dirt, and the quiet, hidden strength she had so carelessly thrown away. Walking into that sterile gray government building felt more surreal than any fancy restaurant. It was a world of flickering fluorescent lights and the low hum of bureaucracy. I didn't have an appointment. I just walked up to the front desk and told the stern-looking woman that I had information regarding 15 years of felony tax evasion by a local business owner. That got their attention. I was led into a small, windowless office, and a man in a rumpled suit named Mr. Davies sat down across from me. He looked tired and skeptical. He probably dealt with disgruntled employees all the time. He asked me for my name and my relationship to the business. I told him. Then I opened my bag and placed the dusty ledgers on his desk. "My boss's name is Sal Antonelli," I said calmly. "He owns the Good Eats Diner on 3rd Street. These are his real books. I'm sure the ones he's been filing with you look quite different." Mr. Davies opened the first ledger. He started flipping through the pages. His tired eyes slowly widened. He pulled out a calculator. He spent a few minutes punching in numbers, his brow furrowed in concentration. Then he looked up at me, his skepticism completely gone, replaced by a look of pure, predatory focus. It was the look of a hunter who had just stumbled upon a prize stag. "Ma'am," he said, his voice low and serious, "are you aware of the IRS whistleblower program? If this information leads to a recovery of unpaid taxes, you are entitled to a significant percentage of the amount recovered." I just looked at him. I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't done this for money. I had done it. I wasn't even sure why. To prove something, maybe. To myself. "All I want," I said, my voice steady, "is for you to do your job, Mr. Davies." I spent the next 3 hours answering his questions. I gave him everything. Dates, names, the system Sal used to hide the cash. When I was done, I stood up, and for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I felt light. The burden of that secret, of Sal's crime, that I had been complicit in by my silence, was gone. It was his problem now. As I walked out of the IRS building, the sun was high in the sky. My daughter's wedding ceremony would be starting soon. My phone, which I'd retrieved from my apartment, began to buzz incessantly. It was Chloe, then David. I ignored the calls. What was there to say? Instead of going to the wedding, I went home. I made myself a cup of tea and sat by the window. I felt a profound sense of peace. The world could do what it would. I had finally done something for myself. The fallout came about 6 months later. It was a Tuesday. I received a thick, official-looking envelope in the mail. Inside was a check from the United States Treasury. I stared at the number, my mind unable to process the amount of zeros. It was more money than I had ever seen in my life. It was more than Beatrice's cashmere suit, more than Chloe's diamond bracelet, more than the entire fairy tale wedding combined. It was the price of 15 years of my silence, the price of my integrity. That same week, the story broke in the local news. Sal Antonelli, a beloved local diner owner, had been arrested for massive tax fraud. His assets were seized, his restaurant shut down. He was facing prison time. The phone call from Chloe came that night. Her voice wasn't angry. It was shocked, confused. "Mom, that diner, the one in the news, that's where you used to work, isn't it?" "Yes, honey, it is," I said calmly. And the news said an anonymous whistleblower, an employee, I. Her voice trailed off as the pieces clicked into place in her mind. She knew my handwriting. She knew I did the books. "Mom, was that you?" "Yes, Chloe, it was me." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing. "But why?" she finally whispered. "After all this time?" I took a deep breath. "Because on the night before your wedding, you told me you wished you had a different mother. And I realized I had spent my whole life being the mother you needed. The one who sacrificed, who struggled, who did whatever it took to keep us afloat. But I never stopped to be the person needed to be. A person who doesn't stay silent about a crime. A person who has self-respect." I didn't tell her about the money. That was mine. It was the back pay for a lifetime of being undervalued. That conversation changed everything. The news of what I had done, the quiet, hidden power I had held for so long, shattered the simple, pitiful image Chloe and Beatrice had of me. I wasn't just provincial Carol, the waitress. I was a woman who had held a man's fate in her hands for over a decade and had finally decided to act. Chloe's fairy tale began to unravel. Her marriage to David thankfully survived. He was a good man, and he was horrified by how his mother and his new wife had treated me. But Chloe's relationship with Beatrice fractured. The power dynamic shifted. Chloe, confronted with the reality of my life, the grit, the moral compromises, the hidden strength, could no longer look at Beatrice's perfect, sterile world in the same way. The diamond bracelets lost some of their shine. She started to see that Beatrice's love was a form of acquisition, while my love, the love she had rejected, was a love of pure, unglamorous, backbreaking sacrifice. She regretted it. Oh, she regretted it deeply. She tried to apologize. There were tearful phone calls, long letters. She and David moved back to Ohio a year later, wanting to be closer, to rebuild. And we have. We found a new way to be mother and daughter. It's different now. The old, naive adoration is gone, replaced by a more sober, more honest respect. She helps me manage my investments now, and we laugh sometimes at the absurdity of it. She sees me not just as her mother who cleaned houses, but as a woman with a complex past and a strength she never understood. The lesson in all this? It's a hard one. Your love for your child should never require the sacrifice of your own soul. You can give them your time, your energy, your last dollar. But you must never, ever give them your self-respect. It is the one thing they cannot live without, and the one thing you cannot survive losing. I had to walk through the deepest humiliation of my life to finally reclaim mine. And to my daughter's credit, she learned a lesson too. That a mother's love isn't measured in diamond bracelets or fancy parties. It's measured in sleepless nights, in patched-up clothes, in the silent, thankless, everyday acts of survival. It's a love that doesn't always sparkle, but it is the foundation upon which everything else is built. And you should never, ever wish it away. Thank you all for listening to my story. It feels good to finally let it out. Before you go, please show your support by liking this video and subscribing to our channel. The notification bell will make sure you see our next story. If you've ever felt misunderstood or undervalued by the ones you love most, please know you are not alone. Share a piece of your strength in the comments below. We all heal by sharing the load. Love you all. This is Grandma Carol, and I'll see you in the next story.